Now let's deal with trapezoids. Interesting thing about trapezoids. Okay, so let me explain and then I'll look at these questions. So trapezoid, what a trapezoid has, it has two sides that are parallel. One of them is bigger than the other. So matter of fact, we're gonna call this base one. Let me call this base one and base two. You see my little subscript, base one and base two. And then there's two sides here that are not parallel, right? If I was to extend those two sides, they eventually will meet. Okay. And then it has the height. Let me say that usually the height I gave it to you in red. So I'm going to emphasize this is the height. So we have what you need are basically the two bases in the height. Now, how are you going to do this? It doesn't look like a rectangle. So it doesn't look like a parallelogram either, because a parallelogram top and the bottom were equal length. Now, one thing that I'm going to do with a trapezoid, let's say I came over and cut it in half. Boom, the half is there. And then the top part, you guys see the top part, the one that says base one? What if I was to flip it and put it here at the side? So I will end up going like this. So the top part, boom, I put it down there. Like I said, I cut the top part and I put it at the bottom, but I flipped it. So this is base one now. Okay. Because like I said, I flipped it. Now, interesting. Let me highlight what I have left over now. What shape is that? Have you guys seen that shape before? Let me highlight it with, let's say, green here. Yeah, that's a parallelogram. Cool. Parallelograms we saw it last like a couple days ago, Monday, this last Monday. Parallelograms we treat it like a rectangle, right? Base and height. Now, one thing here though, my base is gonna be base two plus base one. Notice how my base is big now. Base two plus base one. Cool. And then I know I have to go base times height, right? Or mentioned the two numbers that make the 90-degree angle. But oh, now one thing here, I'm gonna say this is gonna be height divided by 2. Notice I cut the height in half. Remember I said I'm gonna cut it in half. So I'm not gonna use the whole height. I'm gonna use the half of it. Okay, so what are we gonna do here for number 9? Let me erase this so I'll be able to read number 10 in a minute. So this is how we're gonna work this. Let me use red so it stands out. Okay, the bases are the two sides that are parallel. So in question number 9, let me add 2.9 plus 7.9. So in one parentheses, I'm going to add the two bases. So 2.9 plus 7.9. And then in another parentheses, I'm going to go the height divided by 2. The height is usually this number given to you in red. So I'm going to go 2, because you guys see the height, divided by 2. So what's the half of 2? So I'm going to look at that as a different parentheses. Now be careful on how you type this. I wouldn't say type the whole thing at once. Don't. Instead, look at this as two separate parentheses. The first parentheses, let me go 2.9 plus 7.9. And that happens to give me 10.8. Like I said, look at each parentheses individually. That gives me 10.8. Now the second parentheses, what's 2 divided by 2? Okay, that's 1. Notice I saw each parentheses individually. So 1 at a time. Now let me multiply them. What's 10.8 times 1? Well, 10.8. And that's it. So in one parentheses, I'm looking at base 2 plus base 1. Basically, I'm adding the two bases. In the second parentheses, I'm going the height divided by 2. Okay, so now here for question number 10, let me add the two bases. Remember those two that are parallel? So I'm going to go 1.6 plus 4. I added the bases. On the second parentheses, I have to go the height divided by 2. In this case, the height is 2, but I still cut it in two. I have to get the half of it. Okay, my first parentheses, look at it individually. My first parentheses, 1.6 plus 4. That gives me 5.6. The second parentheses, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now, by coincidence, my initial height was 2, so half of it is 1. You're not always going to have the same height, okay? By coincidence, I did. Now, let me multiply my two parentheses. 5.6 times 1 gives me 5.6.